Hey guys, tonight we slip into the dusty, sun-baked streets of ancient Mesopotamia, where the air hums with the chatter of traders and the clink of barley sacks. Picture yourself weaving through a crowded market, the scent of fresh-baked bread and ripe dates curling around you, while merchants shout deals over bleating goats. This is where the world's first receipts were born, those little clay tablets that tracked who owed what to whom. Sounds simple, right? But try keeping up with a bustling trade hub without losing your shirt or your sheep. You probably won't survive this without a good system. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the heart of Uruk, one of the oldest cities ever, around 3000 BCE. The sun's high, baking the mud brick stalls, and your sandals kick up dust as you dodge a donkey cart piled with reeds. Around you, the market pulses like a living thing. Traders from far-off lands, think dusty travelers from the Indus Valley or the Persian Gulf, hawk their wares, shimmering beads, wool dyed crimson, and jars of glistening oil. You hear a Babylonian haggle over the price of a goat, his voice sharp but playful, while a woman nearby weighs grain on a balance scale, her eyes narrowed in focus. This isn't just chaos, it's a delicate dance of trust and trade. And trust, my friend, is fragile when everyone's got their own version of "I paid you already." Here's the kicker. Mesopotamians didn't have cash or credit cards. They bartered, grain for cloth, sheep for tools, but bartering's messy. How do you prove you swapped 3 baskets of dates for a jug of wine when the other guy swears it was only 2? Enter the receipt, the unsung hero of this ancient hustle. These weren't flimsy paper slips, but chunky clay tablets etched with wedge-shaped marks called cuneiform. You'd press a stylus into soft clay, list the goods, maybe add a seal with your personal mark, a bit like signing your name in wet cement. Then bake it in the sun or a kiln, and boom, a record tougher than your grandma's fruitcake. Let's linger on that market vibe. You're brushing past a stall where a merchant's stacking clay jars, each sealed with a lump of clay stamped with a lion's head. That's his signature, his brand. You can almost taste the tang of fermented date wine in the air, and somewhere nearby, a kid's giggling as he chases a stray chicken. It's loud, it's alive, and it's where the idea of tracking deals took root. Historians still argue whether these early receipts were more about trade or temple taxes, but one thing's clear, they kept the chaos in check. Without them, this market would have been a shouting match with extra fists. Now, let's talk Quirky. You know what's wild? Some of these receipts weren't just for goods. They tracked loans of silver or barley with interest rates that'd make a modern banker blush. We're talking 20% or more, scratched right into the clay. Imagine you borrow 10 shekels of silver to buy a fancy cloak. By next harvest, you owe 12, and that tablet's your reminder. Forget to pay, and the lender's knocking with a not-so-friendly enforcer. It's like a credit card statement, but carved in stone and way scarier. You pause by a Scribes stall where a guy's hunched over a clay tablet, his reed stylus moving like he's conducting a tiny orchestra. He's writing a receipt for a deal you just witnessed, 2 sacks of barley for a bundle of reeds. The buyer, a wiry trader with a braided beard, rolls his personal seal, a cylinder carved with stars, across the wet clay. It's oddly satisfying, like popping bubble wrap, but with more gravitas. This tablet's headed for a merchant's archive, maybe stored in a clay envelope to keep it legit. Yeah, they had envelopes back then, but they were clay, not paper, and you'd break them open to read the receipt inside. Bet you didn't see that coming. Let's toss in a mainstream fact. The Sumerians, who kicked off this whole receipt thing, were among the first to develop writing itself. Cuneiform wasn't just for receipts. It recorded laws, myths, even love poems. But receipts? They were the workhorses, the everyday glue holding trade together. Without them, cities like Uruk couldn't have grown into the powerhouses they became. It's not sexy, but it's true. Bureaucracy built civilization. You're starting to feel the rhythm of this place. The market's a maze, but it works because everyone's playing by the same rules. Rules written in clay. You smirk, thinking about how your own receipts pile up in your email inbox. Bet you'd rather have a clay tablet than a crumpled gas station slip. As you wander deeper, the crowd thickens, and you catch a glimpse of a temple in the distance, its ziggurat steps climbing to the sky. That's where this story's headed next, where receipts get tangled up with gods and gold. But for now, you're just soaking in the market's pulse, letting the hum of ancient deals lull you closer to sleep. Let's pause to appreciate this clay. It's not just dirt, it's the backbone of Mesopotamian record keeping. They dig it from riverbanks, knead it to the perfect consistency, and shape it into tablets. Once inscribed, the tablets were dried in the sun or baked in a kiln for permanence. Some of these things have survived 5,000 years, which is more than you can say for your phone's battery life. You smirk thinking about how your grocery receipt fades in a week, while these clay slabs are still chilling in museums, spilling ancient tea about who bought what. Here's a mainstream fact to ground us. Cuneiform, used for these receipts, was one of the earliest writing systems, developed by the Sumerians around 3400 BCE. It wasn't just for trade, it captured everything from royal decrees to medical recipes. But receipts were the grind, the daily grind. They tracked transactions so cities could function, so merchants could trust each other, so nobody could pull a fast one. Without these tablets, Uruk's economy would have been a hot mess, like trying to run a lemonade stand with no memory. Now for something quirky. You notice a tablet on a shelf with a tiny drawing scratched into it, a stick figure cow next to some cuneiform. Turns out, some scribes doodled on their receipts like bored office workers sketching on post-its. These little sketches weren't just flair, they sometimes clarified the deal, like, this is definitely about cows, not goats. Imagine getting a receipt with a doodle of your coffee order. Same vibe. It's a reminder these were real people, not robots, and they had their own ways of making the job fun. You're watching the scribe finish his tablet, and he's muttering under his breath, probably annoyed about a smudge he just made. He smooths it over with a thumbnail, then presses his seal, a small stone carved with a crescent moon, into the corner. That seals his signature, proof this receipt's legit. You can't help but admire the system. It's clunky compared to your tap-to-pay app, but it worked. Historians still argue whether these tablets were more about proving payment or settling disputes, but either way, they were the glue holding trade together. Let's lean into the scene. The workshop's cozy, with sunlight slanting through a high window, catching dust motes in the air. You hear the soft scrape of styluses and the occasional clink of tablets being stacked. Nearby, another scribe's teaching a kid, barely 10 years old, how to shape clay. The kid's tablet looks like a lumpy pancake, and you stifle a chuckle. Bet he's dreaming of anything but a life of bookkeeping. It's a small moment, but it grounds you in this world, where every deal, every debt, every doodle was pressed into clay. You're starting to feel the weight of this place, the way every tablet tells a story. Some are boring, 2 sacks of grain for a jar of oil, but others hint at drama, like a tablet recording a loan with a whopping 33% interest rate. Ouch! You wince thinking of your own bills, but at least you don't have to carve them into clay. As you linger, you notice a stack of tablets wrapped in clay envelopes, sealed tight. Those are for big deals, the kind where trust is thin, and you'd break the envelope to check the receipt inside. It's like ancient 2-factor authentication. The scribe you're watching stands, stretching his back with a groan, and carries his tablet to a sunny ledge to dry. You follow, squinting against the light, and see the street outside bustling again. The market's still alive, and you remember that donkey cart you dodged earlier, Bet its drivers got a receipt somewhere, proving he delivered his reads. This clay tablet system wasn't just a tool, it was a revolution, turning fleeting deals into lasting proof. You're sinking deeper into the rhythm of Uruk, and as the scribe starts another tablet, you feel your eyelids droop, the hum of this ancient world pulling you closer to sleep. You're still in the scribe's workshop in Uruk, the air warm and heavy with the earthy smell of wet clay. The faint hum of the market drifts through the open doorway, but inside, it's all focus and quiet scratches of styluses. You're crouched beside a master scribe now, a wiry man with ink-stained fingers and a permanent squint, as he trains a young apprentice. The kid's nervous, clutching a reed stylus like it's a live snake, trying to mimic the master's precise cuneiform wedges. This is where the art of writing receipts gets polished, where Sumerian scribes turned clay into a language of trust. You lean closer, feeling the rhythm of their work lull you, like the soft patter of rain on a window. The master scribe is etching a receipt for a temple delivery, 3 sheep for a festival, paid in barley. His stylus moves with a dancer's grace, carving symbols for sheep, barley, and the number 3. Each wedge is crisp, no wasted motion. You can almost feel the clay yield under his touch, soft as fresh dough. The apprentice, though, is struggling. His tablet looks like it got trampled by a goat, all wobbly lines and smudges. You smirk, remembering your own attempts at neat handwriting. Bet you'd be just as bad at this. The master sighs, muttering something in Sumerian that probably translates to kids these days. Let's soak in this moment. The workshop's shelves are crammed with tablets, some baked hard as stone, others still soft and glistening. A stray breeze carries the scent of drying reeds, and you hear the apprentice whisper a curse as he botches another symbol. It's a small, human scene, but it's huge. Cuneiform wasn't just writing, it was power. Scribes were the gatekeepers of deals, the ones who made sure nobody could lie about their debts. Without them, that market you wandered through earlier would have been a shouting match with no referee. Here's a mainstream fact. Sumerian scribes were among the first professional writers, trained in schools called tablet houses, starting around 2500 BCE. These weren't just for receipts, they wrote laws, hymns, even math problems. But receipts were their bread and butter, the daily grind that kept cities like Uruk humming. A single tablet could record a trade, settle a debt, or prove a tax payment. It's like if your accountant was also a poet and a lawyer, all rolled into one very tired guy. Now for a quirky tidbit. Some scribes got creative with their tablets, pressing tiny decorative patterns around the edges, like doodling hearts on a notebook. One tablet from Uruk has a border of little fish shapes. Nobody knows why. Maybe the scribe was bored, or maybe he just loved fish. Either way, it's a reminder that these were real people, sneaking a bit of personality into their work. You imagine the apprentice trying to sneak a fish doodle onto his tablet, only to get a stern glare from the master. You're watching the apprentice try again, his tongue poking out as he carves a wobbly, barley symbol. The master corrects him, guiding his hand, and you feel a pang of sympathy. Learning cuneiform was brutal, hundreds of symbols, each with multiple meanings depending on context. A single wedge out of place could turn 10 sheep into 10 jars of oil. Historians still argue whether scribes were elite professionals or overworked clerks, but one thing's clear, their work was the backbone of Mesopotamia's economy. No scribes, no receipts, no trust, no trade. Let's linger on the tablet they're working on. It's for a temple, which you'll visit soon, but for now, picture the scene it describes. A farmer's delivering sheep to a priest, maybe for a big lunar festival. The priest hands over sacks of barley, and this tablet seals the deal. The scribes adding both their seals, cylinder stones rolled across the clay, leaving tiny scenes of gods or lions. It's like a wax seal on a fancy letter, but way cooler. You can almost hear the farmer's gruff, "Thanks," as he hefts the barley onto his cart, the tablet tucked safely in a clay envelope for storage. That envelope's a callback to those clay envelopes you saw in the market, remember? They're like ancient lockboxes, sealing the receipt to prevent tampering. You'd break the envelope to read it, which is both satisfying and a pain. Imagine cracking open your bank statement like a piñata. The apprentice is now practicing his own seal, a clumsy star pattern, and you chuckle softly. Bet he's dreaming of the day he gets his own fancy cylinder seal, maybe one with a cool bull or a goddess. The master scribe finishes the tablet and sets it on a rack to dry, his movements slow and deliberate. You're starting to feel the weight of this place, the way every wedge, every symbol, holds a piece of someone's life. A tablet nearby records a loan of silver with a 25% interest rate. Yikes, talk about ancient payday loans. Another lists a dowry, including 2 goats and a fine cloak. You wonder about the bride, the groom, the goats. These tablets aren't just records, they're stories, and you're sinking deeper into their world, the soft scratch of styluses pulling you closer to sleep. You're leaving the scribe's workshop now, stepping back into the sunlit streets of Uruk, where the air carries the sharp tang of dust and distant river water. Your sandals crunch on the packed earth as you join a caravan trail winding out of the city. You're not just wandering, you're trekking along ancient trade routes, the arteries that pumped goods across Mesopotamia and beyond. The horizon shimmers with heat, and you're surrounded by merchants, their donkeys laden with sacks of grain, bundles of wool, and jars of oil. This is where receipts became more than market paperwork. They were lifelines, proving deals across vast distances. The rhythm of hoofbeats and the low creak of carts start to lull you like a gentle rocking chair. Picture yourself trudging beside a merchant, a grizzled guy with a sun-creased face and a beard braided with tiny beads. He's leading a donkey piled high with barley sacks, headed for a city called Larsa, days away. You glance at his leather satchel, where a clay tablet's tucked, wrapped in a cloth to keep it safe. That's his receipt, proof he's delivering 10 sacks to a trader in Larsa who'll pay him in silver. Without it, he's got nothing but his word, and good luck convincing anyone with that. You smirk, thinking how you'd hate to explain a missing Amazon delivery without a tracking number. These trade routes are wild. You're on a path stretching from the Persian Gulf to the mountains of Anatolia, linking cities like Ur, Nippur, and Babylon. Traders swap everything. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, tin from Iran, even shells from the Indian Ocean. But long-distance trade's risky. Bandits, storms, or a shady partner could ruin you. Receipts were the fix, etched in clay to say, "Yes, I send the goods, now pay up." You can almost feel the merchant's relief as he pats that satchel, knowing his tablets got his back. Here's a mainstream fact. Mesopotamia's trade networks, flourishing by 3000 BCE, were among the earliest global economies, connecting regions across thousands of miles. Receipts were key, standardizing deals so traders could trust each other without meeting face to face. Cities grew rich because these routes worked, and receipts kept them honest. It's not glamorous, but it's why Uruk wasn't just a big village, it was a powerhouse. Now for something quirky. Some traders used bulle, hollow clay balls stuffed with tiny tokens representing goods, like pebbles for sheep or cones for grain. They'd seal the tokens inside, then scratch a receipt on the outside. It's like a Kinder egg for accountants, with a surprise inside if you crack it open. You imagine the merchant showing off his bulla to a buyer, both chuckling as they break it to check the tokens. Bet it felt like opening a present, only to find math. You're keeping pace with the caravan, the sun beating down, and you notice a trader checking his tablet at a rest stop. He's squinting at the cuneiform, muttering about a deal gone wrong last season. Historians still argue whether these receipts were more about tracking goods or settling disputes, but out here, it's both. A good tablet could save your livelihood, a bad one could spark a feud. You wince thinking of that time you lost a receipt for a big purchase. Multiply that stress by a desert trek and no Wi-Fi. Let's sink into the scene. The caravans paused by a muddy stream where donkeys drink and traders splash water on their faces. You hear the soft clink of silver being weighed, the murmur of haggling in a half-dozen languages. Nearby, a kid's carving a fake tablet in the dirt, mimicking his dad's work, and you grin, bet he's dreaming of anything but trade routes. The merchant you're with pulls out his tablet, showing you the seal, a tiny scene of a hero slaying a lion. It's his mark, rolled into the clay like a signature. You can almost smell the warm clay, baked by the sun, as he tucks it back in his satchel. This callback to those cylinder seals you saw in the market ties it all together. Remember that lion-headed seal on the wine jar? Same deal here, but now it's crossing deserts. These seals weren't just art, they were IDs, proving the tablet wasn't forged. You're starting to get why receipts mattered so much. Out here, trust is thinner than the threadbare cloak on that donkey. The merchant's telling you about a trader in Larsa who tried to dodge payment last year, but the tablet shut him down. You nod, half listening, as the caravan's rhythm, clip-clop, creak, murmur, pulls you deeper into a sleepy haze. The trail stretches on, and you're feeling the weight of the journey, the dust settling on your skin. Another trader's tablet catches your eye, listing a trade of wool for copper, with a 20% interest rate if payment's late. Oof, ancient finance was no joke. You chuckle softly, thinking how your bank's fees feel like a modern echo. As the caravan moves again, you spot a distant city's walls, maybe Larsa, where these tablets will be checked, argued over, or stored. The world of receipts is alive out here, and you're drifting, the soft sway of the caravan easing you closer to sleep. You're back in Uruk now, the caravan trails dust still clinging to your sandals as you weave through the city's narrow streets. The sun's dipping low, casting long shadows, and you're drawn toward a massive structure looming ahead. A ziggurat, its mud brick steps climbing like a stairway to the gods. This is the temple of Inanna, goddess of love and war, and it's not just a place of worship, it's a financial hub. You're about to step into the world where receipts tracked divine wealth, where priests and scribes turned clay tablets into sacred spreadsheets. The air smells of incense and baked earth, and the distant chant of a ritual hums like a lullaby, easing you deeper into this ancient rhythm. You climb the ziggurat's outer steps, your breath catching at the view, Uruk's sprawl of mud brick homes, the Euphrates glinting in the twilight. Inside the temple complex, you enter a courtyard bustling with activity. Priests in white robes glide past, their shaved heads gleaming, while workers haul sacks of barley and baskets of dates. You spot a scribe, younger than the one in the workshop, with nervous eyes, etching a tablet at a low table. He's recording a temple offering, a farmer's gift of 5 sheep for Inanna's favor. The tablet's his proof, ensuring the gods and the priests know the deal's done. You smirk, thinking how even divine blessings needed paperwork. Guess bureaucracy's eternal. Let's linger here. The courtyard's alive with the clink of pottery and the bleat of livestock. A priestess pours oil into a bronze bowl, her movements slow and deliberate, while a kid sweeps the floor, dodging a stray goat. The tablet the scribe's working on is small, barely bigger than your phone, but it's heavy with meaning. Temples like this one were Mesopotamia's banks, storing wealth, grain, animals, silver for the city and the gods. Receipts kept it all straight, tracking what came in, what went out, and who owed what. You can almost smell the sharp tang of the oil, the dust kicked up by the goat, and it's pulling you into a sleepy haze. Here's a mainstream fact. Mesopotamian temples, especially in Sumerian cities like Uruk, were economic powerhouses by 3000 BC. They owned vast lands, employed workers, and managed trade, all recorded on clay tablets. Receipts weren't just for traders, they were sacred, ensuring the gods' wealth was honored. This system let temples fund festivals, build ziggurats and feed the poor. Basically, they were the heart of the city's economy. No receipts, no divine order, no Uruk. Now for a quirky tidbit. Some temple receipts included offerings of sacred beer, brewed for the gods and listed alongside sheep or grain. Priests would pour it out during rituals, but you bet they sipped some too. Imagine a tablet reading, 2 jars of beer for Inanna, 1 for the priest's lunch. You chuckle, picturing a priestess sneaking a gulp while the scribe winks and adds it to the tally. It's a glimpse of humanity in these divine ledgers, a reminder that even holy work had its perks. You're watching the scribe finish his tablet, his stylus carving the cuneiform for sheep with a shaky hand. He's new, probably terrified of messing up under the priest's watchful eyes. The tablet's for a farmer who's praying for a good harvest, and you can almost hear his hopeful mutter as he hands over the sheep. Historians still argue whether temple receipts were more about devotion or control. Did they track faith or just taxes disguised as offerings? Either way, they kept the temple's coffers full and the gods appeased. You feel the weight of that balance, the way clay tablets bridge the human and the divine. Let's sink deeper. The scribe rolls a cylinder seal across the tablet, leaving a tiny scene of Inanna with a star crown. That seal's a callback to the market seals you saw. Remember that lion-headed jar? Here, it's sacred, tying the receipt to the goddess herself. The tablet's placed in a clay envelope, sealed for the temple's archives, and you imagine it stored in a cool, dark room, stacked with thousands of others. It's like an ancient vault, but instead of gold, it's full of stories, debts, prayers, and maybe a few beers. You wander toward a shaded corner of the courtyard, where a priest is inspecting a pile of grain sacks, another scribe scribbling nearby. His tablet lists a loan of barley to a farmer with a 25% interest rate if he doesn't repay by harvest. Ouch, even the gods charge steep rates. You wince thinking of your own bills, but at least you don't owe Inanna. The scene's calming, the soft murmur of voices and the rustle of reeds blending into a soothing hum. You're starting to drift, the temple's rhythm wrapping around you like a warm blanket. The scribe you're watching yawns, rubbing his eyes, and you feel a kinship. Late nights with paperwork are universal. Another tablet nearby catches your eye, recording a donation of wool for priestly robes, with a note about extra fine quality. You imagine the weaver's pride, the priest's nod of approval. These receipts aren't just numbers, they're lives, woven into clay. As the courtyard quiets, the last rays of sunlight fading, you're sinking deeper, the temple's pulse, and the distant river's flow carrying you closer to sleep. You're still in the temple courtyard, the evening air cooling as the last sunlight fades from Uruk's ziggurat. The scent of incense lingers, mingling with the earthy tang of mud brick walls. You're drifting away from the priests and their solemn rituals now, back toward the city's bustling heart, where merchants rule the streets. This time, you're zeroing in on their clever tricks, the quirky, sometimes sneaky ways they used receipts to seal deals and outsmart rivals. Picture yourself weaving through a crowded alley, the hum of haggling and the clatter of carts wrapping around you like a soft blanket, lulling you deeper into this ancient world. You pause by a merchant's stall, its wooden frame sagging under piles of dyed wool. Crimson, indigo, and saffron, glowing in the torchlight. The merchant, a stocky man with a sly grin, is wrapping up a deal with a trader from Nippur. They're swapping wool for tin, and you watch as he pulls a clay tablet from a basket, already inscribed with cuneiform. He adds a final mark, then presses his cylinder seal, a snarling bull, into the clay with a flourish. That tablet's his receipt, but it's also his edge, packed with tricks to make sure he comes out on top. You smirk, thinking how this guy would probably crush it on a modern reality show about deal-making. Let's sink into this scene. The alley's alive with movement, donkeys shuffle past, a kid hawks flatbreads from a tray, and somewhere nearby, a flute player's tune floats over the noise. The merchant's tablet isn't just a record, it's a weapon. He's included a clause about late delivery penalties etched right into the clay. If the tin's not here in 10 days, the trader owes extra wool. It's like those fine print terms you skim on a contract, except this one's literally set in stone. You can almost feel the clay's cool weight, the faint grit of dust on your fingers as you imagine holding it. Here's a mainstream fact. Mesopotamian merchants, especially in cities like Uruk, around 2800 BCE, were early entrepreneurs, using receipts to formalize complex trades across regions. These tablets didn't just list goods, they included terms like deadlines, quantities, and even warranties, creating a system that let trade scale beyond local markets. It's why Mesopotamia became an economic hub. Receipts gave merchants the confidence to take risks, knowing their deals were backed by clay. Now for a quirky tidbit. Some merchants got creative with their seals, using them like ancient logos to build their brand. One Uruk trader's seal showed a fish swallowing a smaller fish, his way of saying, "I'm the big fish in this deal." You chuckle, imagining him rolling that seal with a smug nod, like a car dealer slapping his logo on a contract. It wasn't just flair, it made his receipts instantly recognizable, a flex in a world where trust was everything. You're watching the merchant hand the tablet to the trader, who squints at the cuneiform, probably checking for tricks. Historians still argue whether these detailed receipts were about clarity or control. Did merchants use them to streamline trade or to trap partners in tight terms? Out here, it feels like both. A good receipt could lock in a profit. A sneaky one could tilt the whole deal in your favor. You wince, thinking of that time you got burned by a bad return policy. Bet this trader's feeling the same. Let's lean deeper. The merchant's stall is a treasure trove of tablets, some tucked in clay envelopes for big deals, others stacked loose like post-its. One catches your eye, recording a trade of barley for wine, with a note about spiced wine, extra strong. You grin, picturing the merchant sampling it first, maybe winking at the buyer like, "This one's worth the price." Another tablet lists a loan of silver with a 22% interest rate. Yikes, these guys didn't mess around. It's a callback to those high-interest loans you saw in the temple, tying the city's economy together, from gods to gritty deals. The trader from Nippur finally nods, tucking the tablet into his satchel, and the merchant tosses him a free handful of dates as a goodwill gesture. You hear the soft crunch as the trader bites into one, the deal sealed with a snack. It's a small moment, but it grounds you in this world, where every tablet was a story of risk and reward. Nearby, another merchant's arguing over a tablet's terms, his voice sharp but playful, and you can't help but smile. Bet he's trying to pull one of those clever tricks. You're starting to feel the alley's pulse, the way every deal, every seal, every scribbled clause keeps Uruk spinning. The torchlight flickers, casting shadows on the wool piles, and you notice a kid nearby, maybe the merchant's son, practicing his own seal on a scrap of clay. His design's a wobbly bird, and you stifle a laugh. Give him a few years, and he'll be outsmarting traders too. The scene's calming, the hum of voices and the distant flute blending into a soothing rhythm. You're sinking deeper, the weight of ancient deals and clever tricks easing you closer to sleep. You're still in Uruk's bustling alleys, the torchlight casting a warm glow on the mud brick walls as you move deeper into the city. The scent of roasted barley and spilled wine hangs in the air, and the hum of merchants' voices fades into a softer murmur. You're heading toward the shadow of a grand palace now, its high walls adorned with colorful tiles that glint in the moonlight. This is the king's domain, where power and wealth collide, and where receipts aren't just about trade, they're about control. You're about to see how kings used clay tablets to tighten their grip on taxes and tribute, their scribes scribbling to keep the kingdom's coffers full. The distant sound of a guard's footsteps, steady and rhythmic, starts to lull you, like a metronome ticking you toward sleep. You slip through a guarded gate, nodding at a spear-toting soldier who barely glances your way. Inside the palace courtyard, it's all business. Scribes huddle under a reed awning, their tablets spread out like a chaotic desk. One's etching a receipt for a tax payment, 10 sacks of grain from a farmer in the outskirts. The king's seal, a roaring lion, gets rolled across the clay, making it official. You can almost feel the farmer's grumble as he handed over his harvest, knowing the king's not messing around. You smirk, thinking how tax season's been stressing people out for 5,000 years. Some things never change. Let's soak in this scene. The courtyard's lit by flickering oil lamps, their light dancing on the scribes' focused faces. A breeze carries the faint scent of myrrh from a nearby shrine, and you hear the clink of silver being weighed for another tax payment. The tablets here are bigger, more formal, some wrapped in clay envelopes to prevent tampering. These aren't just receipts, they're the king's ledger, tracking every sheep, every sack, every shekel owed to the crown. You can almost taste the tension in the air. Nobody wants to shortchange a king who's got an army and a temper. Here's a mainstream fact. By 2700 BCE, Mesopotamian kings, especially in Sumerian cities like Uruk, used centralized record-keeping to manage taxes and tribute, with receipts as the backbone. These tablets let rulers track wealth across their domains, fund wars, and build monuments like ziggurats. It was early bureaucracy at its finest. Kings didn't just rule by might, they ruled by numbers, etched into clay to keep their empire humming. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some tax receipts included weirdly specific items, like 1 lame donkey or 3 broken pots as part of a payment. Imagine a farmer, desperate to meet his tax quota, tossing in a limping donkey and hoping the scribe doesn't laugh. You chuckle, picturing the scribe's eye roll as he carves lame donkey into the tablet, probably muttering about the paperwork. It's a reminder that even in a king's palace, life had its absurd moments. You're watching a scribe finish a tablet, his stylus moving with the precision of a surgeon. This one's for a merchant who paid his trade tax in silver, but there's a catch. The tablet notes a penalty for late payment, adding 20% to the bill. Ouch. Historians still argue whether these tax receipts were about fairness or exploitation. Did kings use them to stabilize the economy, or to squeeze every last grain from their subjects? Out here, it feels like a bit of both. You wince, thinking of your own late fees, but at least you don't have to face a royal enforcer. Let's lean deeper. The courtyard's a hive of activity, with scribes cross-checking tablets against a master ledger, a massive slab covered in tiny cuneiform. One scribe's arguing with a messenger about a missing receipt, his voice sharp but tired. You grin, imagining him dreaming of a beach vacation, far from clay and kings. Nearby, a tablet catches your eye, listing tribute from a distant village. 50 reeds, 2 goats, 1 fine cloak. You picture the village chief, sweating as he sent his best cloak to appease the king. It's a callback to those temple receipts you saw, tying the city together. Gods, merchants, and now kings, all bound by clay. The scribe you're watching seals his tablet with the king's lion stamp, then hands it to a runner who'll deliver it to the royal archives. You follow the runner's path with your eyes, noticing the palace's towering walls, their tiles painted with scenes of warriors and gods. Another tablet nearby records a tax exemption for a priestess, a rare favor from the king. You wonder about her story. Maybe she's got some divine pull. The scene's calming, the soft scratch of styluses and the flicker of lamps blending into a soothing hum. You're starting to drift, the weight of royal power and endless tablets pulling you closer to sleep. You linger by the awning, feeling the cool night air on your skin. A guard paces nearby, his armor clinking softly, and you notice a kid, maybe a scribe's apprentice, practicing cuneiform on a scrap of clay. His wedges are wobbly, and you stifle a laugh, remembering that clumsy apprentice in the workshop. The palace is a machine, grinding out receipts to keep the kingdom in line, and you're sinking into its rhythm, the steady pulse of clay and power easing you deeper into a drowsy haze. You're slipping out of the king's palace now, the cool night air brushing your skin as you leave the clatter of scribes and guards behind. Uruk's streets are quieter under the stars, but there's still a pulse, faint laughter from a tavern, the creak of a cart rolling home. You're heading back to the market's edge, where torchlit stalls cast flickering shadows. This time, you're diving into the messy side of trade, disputes. Deals go sour, merchants bicker, and receipts, those trusty clay tablets, get a chance to shine or fail. You're about to see how arguments over who owes what sparked smarter, tougher receipt designs. The soft hum of crickets and the distant trickle of a canal start to wrap around you, lulling you like a gentle tide. You stop at a small square where two merchants are locked in a heated spat, their voices sharp but not quite shouting. One's a wiry trader from Sipar, waving a clay tablet like it's a weapon. The other, a burly local with a braided beard, jabs a finger at the tablet, claiming it's wrong. The issue? A shipment of wool. 10 bundles, supposedly delivered, but the local swears he got only 8. You lean against a wall, watching the crowd gather, a few onlookers smirking like they're at a street show. You grin, thinking how this could be your neighbors, arguing over a misdelivered pizza, except with higher stakes and no app to check the order. Let's sink into this drama. The square's lit by a single torch, its flame flickering on the traders' flushed faces. Nearby, a woman sells sesame cakes, her tray wafting a sweet, nutty scent that makes your stomach rumble. The Sipar trader's tablet lists the deal: 10 bundles of wool for 3 shekels of silver, sealed with both their marks. But the local's not buying it. He claims the tablet's a rush job, missing details like the wool's weight. You can almost feel the clay's weight in your hand, the faint grit of its surface, as you imagine inspecting it. Disputes like this pushed Mesopotamians to make receipts clearer, adding specifics to avoid these shouting matches. Here's a mainstream fact. By 2600 BC, Mesopotamian trade disputes were common enough that receipts evolved to include detailed terms, weights, measures, even delivery dates. These tablets weren't just records, they were legal tools used in front of judges or elders to settle arguments. Cities like Uruk relied on them to keep markets fair, preventing trade from dissolving into chaos. It's why receipts became so precise. Without them, trust would have collapsed faster than a bad Wi-Fi signal. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some merchants, fed up with disputes, started using notarized receipts, where a third party, like a temple scribe, added their seal as a witness. It's like getting your contract signed by a notary, but with a priest who might also offer you a sip of sacred beer. You chuckle, picturing the Sipar trader wishing he'd sprung for that extra seal, maybe saving him this headache. It's a glimpse of how clever these folks were, turning clay into courtroom evidence. You're watching the argument heat up, the local merchant demanding a recount of the wool. A bystander, maybe a friend of the Sipar guy, pipes up, saying the tablet's seal matches the trader's usual bull design. Remember that snarling bull from the market? It's a callback, tying the city's deals together. But the local's not impressed. He wants a judge to check the tablet against the wool in his storeroom. Historians still argue whether these detailed receipts reduced disputes or just made them more technical. Did they clarify deals or give people new things to fight over? Out here, it's a toss-up. You wince, thinking of that time you argued over a double-charged coffee. Bet these guys feel the same sting. Let's lean deeper. The crowd's growing, and a scribe's been called over, his reed stylus tucked behind his ear like a pencil. He's inspecting the tablet, squinting at the cuneiform in the dim light. The tablet's got a crack. Uh-oh. The local pounces, claiming it's proof of tampering. You smirk, imagining the Sipar trader's panic, like when you realize your receipt's too faded to return that shirt. The scribe's calm, though, suggesting they check the clay envelope it came in, stored at the trader's stall. Those envelopes, like the ones you saw in the temple, are lifesavers, sealing the truth until you break them open. The scribe's verdict is pending, but you notice another tablet on a nearby stall, listing a settled dispute. A trader paid a fine for shorting a grain delivery with a note about reweighed sacks. You imagine the loser grumbling as he handed over extra grain, the receipt his punishment. Another tablet catches your eye, recording a deal with a 25% penalty for late payment. Yikes, these folks played hardball. The scene's calming, the merchant's voice is softening as the scribe takes charge. You're starting to drift, the flicker of torchlight and the canal's gentle ripple blending into a soothing hum. You linger in the square, feeling the cool night air on your face. A kid nearby is tossing pebbles, mimicking the adult's argument, and you stifle a laugh. Bet he'll be haggling over tablets someday. The dispute's winding down, the crowd thinning, and you're sinking deeper into Uruk's rhythm, the weight of clay tablets and clever fixes easing you closer to sleep. You're drifting away from the market square now, the torchlight and bickering merchants fading as Uruk's night wraps around you. The air's cooler, carrying the faint scent of river reeds and wood smoke. You're wandering toward a tavern, its mud brick walls glowing under flickering oil lamps. Inside, it's warm and lively, the hum of conversation and clinking pottery blending into a cozy drone. This is where you discover one of Mesopotamia's quirkiest twists. Beer wasn't just a drink, it was money, and receipts tracked it like gold. You settle onto a reed mat, the tavern's soft bustle lulling you, like the hum of a distant fan on a warm night. You're sitting near a brewer, a stout woman with flour-dusted hands, haggling with a farmer. She's trading a jar of her famous date beer for his basket of barley, and a scribe's scratching the deal onto a clay tablet. The tablet lists 2 jars of beer as payment, sealed with her mark, a crescent moon. You can almost taste the beer's tangy fizz, imagining the farmer's grin as he accepts the deal. Beer was huge in Mesopotamia, not just for sipping, but for paying bills, wages, even taxes. You smirk thinking how you'd love to pay your phone bill with a 6-pack, bet it'd go over as well as a lame donkey. Let's soak in this tavern vibe. The room's packed, merchants, laborers, even a priest nursing a clay cup. A kid weaves through, refilling jars from a massive vat, its yeasty smell mixing with roasted meat. The tablet the scribe's working on is small but precise, noting the beer's quality. Fine, unfiltered, and the barley's weight. These beer receipts weren't casual, they were serious business, proving who paid what in a world where a good brew was as valuable as silver. You can almost hear the clay's soft squish as the scribe presses his stylus, the sound blending with the tavern's hum. Here's a mainstream fact. By 2500 BC, beer was a cornerstone of Mesopotamian economy and culture, used as currency in cities like Uruk. Receipts for beer transactions were common, detailing volumes and types, and they helped standardize trade in a society where barley and brews were more reliable than coins. Beer wasn't just a drink, it was a system, recorded on clay to keep the city's pulse steady. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some beer receipts included tasting notes, like sweet, brewed for festival, or sour, for workers. It's like a Mesopotamian Yelp review, etched in clay. You chuckle, picturing the brewer boasting about her festival blend, while the farmer nods, probably just happy to get drunk. These notes weren't just flair, they clarified value, since a fancy beer was worth more than the cheap stuff. Bet the priest over there sipping the premium batch. You're watching the scribe hand the tablet to the brewer, who tucks it into a basket with others. The farmer's already sampling his beer, his face relaxing with the first sip. Historians still argue whether beer's role as currency drove receipt innovation or just reflected it. Did brewers push for detailed tablets to protect their profits, or were they just caught up in the system? In this tavern, it feels personal. A bad receipt could mean losing a week's worth of brew, and you wince, thinking of that time you lost a gift card. Same vibe, bigger stakes. Let's lean deeper. The tavern's walls are hung with dried herbs, their faint spice cutting through the beer's yeasty tang. Another tablet nearby catches your eye, recording a worker's wages. 3 jars of beer for 5 days' labor. You imagine the worker, sweaty from hauling reeds, chugging his pay with a grin. It's a callback to those market deals, like the wool for tin swap, where every tablet tied people together, merchants, farmers, now brewers, all bound by clay. Another tablet lists a tax payment in beer for the temple, tying back to that ziggurat you visited. The brewer's now joking with a customer, her laugh loud and warm, and you notice her cylinder seal, a moon like the one on the tablet, dangling from her belt. It's her brand, her proof, rolled into every deal. A nearby tablet records a loan of beer with a 20% interest rate. Yep, even brews came with a catch. You grin, thinking how your bank's fees feel tame compared to owing extra beer. The scene's calming, the clink of cups and the scribe's soft scratching blending into a soothing rhythm. You're starting to drift, the tavern's glow and the weight of ancient brews pulling you closer to sleep. You linger by the brewer's table, feeling the reed mat's texture under you. A kid sweeping the floor, dodging a spilled beer puddle, and you stifle a laugh. Bet he's dreaming of anything but tavern chores. Another tablet, half buried in the basket, lists a beer trade with a note about delivery by moonlight. You picture the sneaky nighttime drop-off, maybe to dodge a tax collector. The tavern's pulse is alive, and you're sinking deeper, the hum of beer and clay easing you into a drowsy haze. You're easing out of the tavern now, the warm glow of oil lamps and the tang of beer fading as you step into Uruk's quiet streets. The night air is crisp, laced with the scent of river mud and blooming tamarisk. You're wandering into a residential quarter where mud brick houses cluster like sleeping giants under the stars. This is where ordinary families lived, and you're about to peek into their world, where clay tablets weren't just for merchants or kings, they tracked household debts, deals and dreams. The soft chirp of crickets and the distant lap of the Euphrates wrap around you, lulling you like a whispered bedtime story. You pause outside a modest home, its door frame strung with dried herbs to ward off bad vibes. Inside, by the flicker of a single lamp, a woman, let's call her Amma, is sorting clay tablets on a reed mat. She's the household's record keeper, her fingers deft as she checks a tablet listing a debt. Her neighbor owes 3 baskets of dates due next harvest. She rolls her personal seal, a tiny ibex, across the clay, her face set with quiet pride. You can almost feel the tablet's cool weight, the faint grit of clay dust as you imagine holding it. Families like Amma's used receipts to manage their lives, keeping tabs on loans, trades, and promises. You smirk, thinking how your own budgeting app feels like a flimsy echo of her system. Let's sink into this cozy scene. The house is small but lived in, with a loom in one corner and a clay jar of barley by the door. A kid, maybe Amma's son, sleeps on a mat, his soft snores blending with the crickets outside. The tablet Amma's working on is practical, listing the date's weight and a 15% interest rate if the neighbor's late. It's not just a debt, it's trust, etched in clay to keep the neighborhood's web of favors intact. You can almost smell the herbs, their faint spice cutting through the earthy air, pulling you into a sleepy haze. Here's a mainstream fact. By 2500 BCE, Mesopotamian households in cities like Uruk used clay tablets for personal record keeping, tracking loans, dowries, and small trades. These domestic receipts show how deeply writing permeated society, not just for elites, but for families managing tight budgets. They helped stabilize communities, letting neighbors lend and borrow without fear of being cheated. It's proof that literacy, even if limited, was a game changer for everyday life. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some family tablets included personal notes, like, "Repay when the moon is full," or, "For my sister's wedding." It's like jotting IOU for pizza on a napkin, but way more durable. You chuckle, Picturing Amma adding a note about the neighbor's promise to throw in some figs with the dates, her stylus scratching with a hint of sass. These touches made receipts more than math. They were snapshots of relationships carved into clay. You're watching Amma stack her tablets in a clay box, her movements slow and deliberate. The dead tablets joined by another, listing a trade. Her husband swapped a goat for a new plow, sealed with both their marks. Historians still argue whether household receipts empowered families or trapped them in debt. Did they give people like Amma control, or just more ways to owe? In this quiet house, it feels like power. She's running the show, her tablets a shield against forgetful neighbors. You wince, thinking of that time you lent a friend $20 and never saw it again. Bet Amma's got that covered. Let's lean deeper. The lamp's flame dances, casting shadows on the mud brick walls, where a small niche holds a clay figurine of a goddess, maybe Inanna, tying back to that temple you visited. Another tablet catches your eye, recording a dowry for Amma's daughter. 2 cloaks, 1 ewe, 10 measures of barley. You imagine the family's pride, the daughter's nervous smile, the ewe bleating in the yard. It's a callback to those temple and market receipts, weaving Uruk's economy together, gods, traders, now families, all bound by clay. Another tablet lists a loan Amma made to a weaver, with a 20% interest rate. Yep, even neighbors played tough. Amma's humming softly, a tune you can't quite catch, as she tucks the clay box under the loom. The kid stirs, mumbling in his sleep, and you stifle a laugh. Bet he's dreaming of chasing goats, not balancing debts. Another tablet, half finished, lists a trade with a note about barley delivered at dawn. You picture Amma up early, haggling in the cool morning light, her seal ready. The scene's calming, the hum of her tune and the cricket's chirp blending into a soothing rhythm. You're starting to drift, the weight of family life and clay tablets easing you closer to sleep. You linger in the doorway, feeling the night's chill on your skin. A stray cat slinks by, its eyes glinting, and you grin. Bet Amma's got a tablet for 1 fish fed to cat. The house feels alive, its tablets telling stories of trust, debt, and daily grind. You're sinking deeper into Uruk's pulse, the soft glow of the lamp and the river's distant murmur pulling you into a drowsy haze, ready for the next step in this ancient journey. You're slipping out of Amma's cozy home now, the soft glow of her lamp fading as you step back into Uruk's quiet streets. The night air is heavy with the scent of river silt and blooming jasmine, and the stars above feel close enough to touch. You're heading toward a scribal school, a low mud brick building tucked behind a temple's shadow. This is where young scribes trained, and you're about to feel the pressure they faced, churning out receipts under tight deadlines for merchants, priests, and kings. The faint hoot of an owl and the gentle ripple of a nearby canal wrap around you, soothing you like a whispered lullaby, easing you deeper into this ancient world. You duck under a reed curtain and enter the school, where the air's thick with the smell of wet clay and nervous sweat. By the flicker of oil lamps, a dozen boys, some barely 10, hunch over tablets, their reed styluses scratching cuneiform with varying skill. The master scribe, a stern man with a grey-streaked beard, paces like a hawk, correcting wobbly wedges with a sharp tisk. You're watching one kid, his fingers trembling as he carves a receipt for a fictional grain trade, racing to finish before the lamp oil runs out. You can almost feel his stress, the clay's slick weight in his hands, and you smirk. Bet you'd crack under that pressure too, like forgetting your lines in a school play. Let's sink into this scene. The room's cramped, with shelves of practice tablets and a faint hum of muttered curses from the boys. One's tablet is a mess, smudged where he tried to fix a mistake, and you hear the master's sigh from across the room. The receipt the kid's working on lists 5 sacks of barley, paid to the temple, but his numbers are off, turning 5 into 50. The master looms, pointing out the error, and you wince, remembering that time you fat-fingered a payment app. These kids weren't just learning to write, they were training to keep Uruk's economy alive, one tablet at a time. Here's a mainstream fact. Scribal schools, or edubas, were established in Mesopotamian cities like Uruk by 2500 BC, training boys, and rarely girls, to write cuneiform for administrative tasks. Receipts were a core part of their work, as scribes recorded taxes, trades, and loans for the city's elite. This education was rigorous, producing skilled professionals who kept society's wheels turning. Without their tablets, Uruk's markets, temples, and palaces would have ground to a halt. Now for a quirky tidbit. Some practice tablets have snarky notes scratched into them, like "I hate barley" or "Teacher is mean." It's like a kid doodling complaints in a textbook, except in clay that's lasted millennia. You chuckle, picturing this trembling boy sneaking a "this is dumb" into his tablet's margin, hoping the master doesn't notice. It's a reminder these were kids, stressed and human, not just cogs in a bureaucratic machine. You're watching the boy try again, his stylus shaking as he recarves the number 5. The master's hovering, muttering about deadlines. Apparently, a real merchant needs this receipt by dawn for a tax audit. Historians still argue whether scribes were elite or overworked. Did their skills give them status, or were they trapped in a grind of endless tablets? In this room, it's all pressure. A bad receipt could mess up a deal, anger a priest, or worse, land you in front of an annoyed king. You feel the kids panic, like when you're rushing to file taxes at midnight. Let's lean deeper. The school's walls are hung with sample tablets, showing perfect cuneiform for grain, sheep, and silver. One boy's practicing a seal, rolling a wobbly star across his clay, a callback to those market and temple seals you saw, like that snarling bull or Inanna's star crown. Another tablet lists a practice loan with a 22% interest rate. Yep, even fake debt stung. You imagine the boy dreaming of anything but clay, maybe running by the river instead of sweating here. The scene's intense but calming, the stylus's soft scratches and the lamp's flicker blending into a hypnotic rhythm. You notice a finished tablet on a shelf, recording a real receipt for a temple delivery, 10 jars of oil sealed by priestess. It's flawless, probably the master's work, and you picture it joining the temple's archives, like those clay envelopes you saw. Another tablet, a student's attempt, has a cracked corner. Oops! The master's lecturing about precision, and you stifle a laugh, thinking of that clumsy apprentice in the workshop, his lumpy tablet like a bad pancake. The room's alive with effort, each wedge a step toward keeping Uruk's deals honest. You linger by the boy, feeling the weight of his task. The lamp's oil is low, casting long shadows, and the owl outside hoots again. Another tablet catches your eye, listing a dowry, 1 goat, 2 cloaks, tying back to Amma's household records. These kids were learning to weave Uruk's stories, debts, taxes, dreams into clay. You're starting to drift, the school's hum and the canal's gentle flow pulling you closer to sleep, the pressure of ancient scribes easing you into a drowsy haze. You're easing out of the scribal school now, the dim flicker of lamps and the tense scratches of styluses fading as you step back into Uruk's starlit streets. The night air is cool, carrying the faint scent of river reeds and charred wood from a distant fire. You're wandering toward the market's edge again, where the stalls are shuttered, but a few late-night traders linger, their voices low and wary. This time, you're diving into the shadier side of receipts, fakes, and fraud. Some crafty folks tried to game the system, forging tablets or tweaking seals to cheat their way to a profit. You're about to see how these scams challenged trust and pushed receipts to get tougher. The soft rustle of palm fronds and the canal's gentle gurgle wrap around you, lulling you like a slow, steady heartbeat. You pause by a darkened stall, where a trader, let's call him Enki, is muttering with a nervous scribe under a flickering torch. Enki's clutching a clay tablet, his eyes darting as he points to its cuneiform. It's a receipt for a grain delivery, but something's off. The seal, a bull like that snarling one you saw in the market, looks smudged, like someone tried to copy it. the scribe's shaking his head, whispering about a rival trader who's been passing fake tablets to dodge debts. You can almost feel the tablet's weight, its edges rough from hasty carving, and you smirk. Bet Enki's wishing he'd double-checked this deal, like when you realize that designer bag you bought online is a knockoff. Let's sink into this shady scene. The market's quiet, save for the creak of a cart and a dog's distant bark. The torchlight casts jittery shadows on the stall's mud brick wall where a basket of tablets sits, some cracked from rough handling. Enki's tablet lists 10 sacks of barley, paid in full, but the scribe suspects it's forged, maybe carved by a hired hand with a stolen seal. Fraud was a real problem in Mesopotamia. A good fake could trick a busy merchant, leaving them short on goods or silver. You can almost smell the torch's smoky tang, the tension in the air pulling you into a drowsy haze. Here's a mainstream fact. By 2400 BCE, Mesopotamian cities like Uruk faced growing issues with fraud as trade networks expanded and receipts became more complex. Forged tablets or altered seals prompted stricter standards, like notarized seals from temples or double-checked archives, to protect markets. These anti-fraud measures strengthened trust, letting cities grow into economic hubs. It's why receipts had to be bulletproof. Without them, trade would have been a gamble with no referee. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some forgers got creative, using clay from specific riverbanks to match a merchant's usual tablets, like picking the right paper for a fake check. One busted forger in Ur even tried blaming a cursed stylus for his bad wedges. Nice try, buddy. You chuckle, picturing Enki's rival spinning a similar excuse, maybe claiming a goat ate the real tablet. It's a glimpse of the lengths people went to, turning clay into a con artist's canvas. You're watching the scribe inspect the tablet, holding it close to the torch to check the seal's lines. He's muttering about a recent case where a trader got caught with a fake, forced to pay double as punishment. Historians still argue whether fraud pushed receipt innovation or just exposed its flaws. Did fakes force better designs or show how fragile trust was? Out here, it's a wake-up call. A bad tablet could ruin a merchant like Enki, and you wince, thinking of that time you got scammed on a too-good-to-be-true deal. Same sting, ancient stakes. Let's lean deeper. The scribe's now comparing the tablet to another from Enki's basket, a legit one with a crisp bull seal. The difference is subtle, but clear. The fake's wedges are uneven, like a kid's practice tablet from that scribal school you visited. It's a callback to those wobbly wedges, tying Uruk's world together, schools, markets, now scams, all bound by clay. Another tablet nearby catches your eye, listing a loan with a 25% interest rate, sealed by a temple to prevent fraud. You imagine the lender's relief, knowing a priest's mark is harder to fake. Enki's pacing, his voice low but frantic, as the scribe suggests taking the tablet to a judge at dawn. The crowd's small, just a few nosy traders, but you notice a kid nearby, eavesdropping with wide eyes, probably thrilled by the drama. You stifle a laugh, bet he's dreaming of pulling his own scam someday, not scribbling receipts. Another tablet, half buried in the basket, records a settled fraud case. A merchant repaid a cheated buyer with 2 goats and 1 fine cloak. You picture the goats bleating, the cloak's bright dye, a grudging apology. The scene's calming, the torches flicker, and the canal's soft ripple blending into a soothing hum. You're starting to drift, the weight of fakes and clever cons easing you closer to sleep. You linger by the stall, feeling the night's chill on your skin. The scribe's wrapping the suspect tablet in a cloth, and Enki's muttering about checking his seals tomorrow. Uruk's pulse is alive, its tablets guarding trust against those who'd break it. And you're sinking deeper, the hum of ancient scams pulling you into a drowsy haze. You're drifting away from the shady stall now, the torchlight and Enki's muttering fading as you wander deeper into Uruk's quiet night. The air's thick with the scent of river mud and cooling earth, and the stars above glitter like scattered silver. You're heading toward a central plaza where a low, official-looking building stands, its mud brick walls etched with scenes of kings and gods. This is the city's administrative hub, where Uruk's leaders worked to standardize receipt systems, tying markets, temples, and households into one smooth machine. The soft chirp of frogs by the canal and the faint rustle of date palms lull you, like a gentle breeze rocking you toward sleep. You step inside the building, where scribes and officials bustle despite the late hour, their oil lamps casting a warm glow. You're watching a senior scribe, a woman with sharp eyes and a braided crown, sorting tablets on a long table. She's checking receipts from across Uruk, market trades, temple offerings, tax payments, making sure they follow new city rules, consistent symbols, clear seals, and exact weights. One tablet, for a wool delivery, catches her eye. It's sloppy, missing a weight measure. She tisks, setting it aside for correction. You can almost feel the clay's smooth weight, the faint dust on your fingers, and you smirk. Bet she's the type who'd red pen your homework into oblivion. Let's sink into this scene. The room's alive with quiet efficiency, scribes murmur, tablets clink, and a fan of palm leaves stirs the air, carrying the scent of ink and clay. The tablet the scribe's checking now is pristine. 5 jars of oil delivered to the palace, with a lion seal and precise cuneiform. It's part of Uruk's push to unify receipts, so a trader in the market uses the same system as a priest in the temple or a family like Amas. This standardization was a big deal, cutting down on disputes and fraud. You can almost hear the soft scratch of a stylus nearby, blending with the frog's hum outside, pulling you into a drowsy haze. Here's a mainstream fact. By 2400 BCE, Mesopotamian cities like Uruk developed standardized receipt systems to streamline trade and administration across growing urban centers. These rules, fixed measurements, shared cuneiform symbols, and verified seals created a shared economic language, letting cities manage complex networks of goods and taxes. It was a bureaucratic leap, turning chaotic local systems into something scalable, like the first version of a global spreadsheet. Now for a quirky tidbit. Some standardized tablets included template phrases, like received in good order or inspected by scribe, stamped into the clay for speed. It's like an ancient autofill, saving scribes from writing the same thing over and over. You chuckle, picturing this sharp-eyed scribe rolling her eyes as she stamps good order on a tablet, probably wishing for a coffee break. These shortcuts show how practical Uruk's leaders were, turning clay into a well-oiled machine. You're watching the scribe compare 2 tablets, one from a merchant, another from a temple, checking their seals and weights. She's muttering about a new rule requiring double seals for big trades, a response to those fakes you saw with Enki. Historians still argue whether standardization empowered cities or stifled local flexibility. Did it make trade smoother or bury scribes in red tape? In this room, it's all about control. A unified system means fewer mistakes, fewer fights, and you nod, thinking of how your bank's app saves you from checkbook chaos. Same vibe, ancient stakes. Let's lean deeper, the tables piled with tablets, some in clay envelopes like those you saw in the palace, tying Uruk's systems together, market, temple, now city hall, all bound by clay. One tablet lists a tax payment. 10 sheep, verified by city scribe, with a note about a new weight standard. You imagine the farmers grumble, adjusting to the city's rules, like Amma checking her household debts. Another tablet records a loan with a 20% interest rate, sealed by both parties and a city official. Tough but fair. You grin, thinking how your credit card's fine print feels like a distant cousin. The scribe's now teaching a younger colleague, pointing out a tablet's flawless cuneiform. See, this is how it's done. The younger scribe nods, his stylus poised, and you stifle a laugh. Bet he's dreaming of anything but clay, like that kid in the scribal school. Another tablet catches your eye, listing a trade with a note, checked by moonlight, per city rule. You picture the late-night inspection, scribes squinting under torches, ensuring Uruk's system holds. the scene's calming, the lamps flicker, and the palm fronds rustle, blending into a soothing hum. You linger by the table, feeling the night stillness settle over you. A stray breeze carries the canal's cool breath, and you notice a tablet recording a citywide grain tally, proof of Uruk's growing power. The scribe's voice softens as she explains a seal's design, and you're starting to drift, the weight of standardized clay and city dreams easing you closer to sleep. Uruk's pulse is steady now, its tablets weaving a web of trust, and you're sinking deeper, the hum of ancient order pulling you into a drowsy haze. You're slipping out of the administrative hub now, the steady hum of scribes and the scent of clay fading as you step back into Uruk's star-dusted night. The air is soft, laced with the cool breath of the Euphrates and the faint sweetness of ripening figs. You're wandering toward the city's outer walls, where the horizon stretches toward distant lands. This time, you're not just in Uruk, you're connecting its clay tablets to the world beyond, tracing how ancient receipts shaped the bookkeeping we know today. The gentle lap of the river and the whisper of wind through reeds lull you, like a slow rocking cradle easing you toward sleep. You pause by a low stone bench, overlooking the river's glint under the moonlight. Picture yourself sitting here, a clay tablet in your lap, its cuneiform listing a trade from long ago. 10 measures of barley for wool, delivered to Babylon. You're not just holding history, you're holding the seed of modern finance. Those receipts you've seen, from markets to temples to Amma's home, weren't just Uruk's quirk. They laid the groundwork for ledgers, banks, even your budgeting app. You can almost feel the tablet's weight, its edges worn smooth, and you smirk. Bet you'd rather deal with this than a crashed spreadsheet. Let's sink into this moment. The riverbank's quiet, save for a fisherman's soft splash and the rustle of a heron in the reeds. You're imagining Uruk's tablets spreading their influence, carried by traders to Babylon, Susa, even the Indus Valley. Each receipt, with its precise weights and seals, taught the world to trust records over memory. Fast forward, and you see echoes in medieval ledgers, colonial trade logs, right up to your bank's digital vault. It's a long thread, woven through clay, and you can almost smell the river's damp earth, the night's calm pulling you into a drowsy haze. Here's a mainstream fact. Mesopotamian receipts, developed by 3000 BCE, were a cornerstone of early accounting, influencing record keeping across ancient civilizations like Egypt and the Hittites. Their focus on detail, quantities, seals, terms, set a standard for tracking wealth, evolving into the double-entry bookkeeping of the Renaissance and modern finance. Uruk's clay tablets weren't just local, they were a global spark making economies predictable and scalable. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some Mesopotamian tablets included balance sheets, tallying a merchant's total assets, like 50 sheep, 10 jars of oil, 1 bad donkey. It's like an ancient Excel sheet, but carved in clay and way more charming. You chuckle, picturing a trader squinting at his tablet, muttering about that donkey, maybe wishing he'd traded it for beer. These early balance sheets show how receipts weren't just about single deals. They built systems to track wealth over time. You're tracing the tablet's cuneiform with your finger, feeling its wedges under the moonlight. This one sealed with a star, like that priestess's mark in the temple, a callback tying Uruk's pieces together. Market, palace, now the world. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian receipts directly shaped modern accounting or just inspired it. Did Uruk's scribes invent the ledger, or were they one step in a bigger chain? Sitting here, it feels like a straight line. Every tablet you've seen, from Enki's fakes to Amma's debts, was a brick in the foundation of how we track money today. Let's lean deeper. The river's edge is serene, with a distant boat creaking as it glides. You notice a discarded tablet half buried in the mud, its cuneiform faded but legible. Loan of silver, 20% interest, repaid at harvest. It's a reminder of those steep rates you saw in the market and palace, tying Uruk's economy to the future. Your credit card's APR has ancient roots. You imagine merchants carrying these tablets along trade routes, their seals sparking trust in far-off cities. Another tablet, washed up nearby, lists a trade with a note. Verified by city scribe, echoing that standardized system you saw in the plaza. You're starting to feel the weight of this legacy, the way clay tablets carried Uruk's ideas across centuries. A kid nearby is skipping stones across the river, his soft splashes blending with the reed's rustle, and you stifle a laugh. Bet he's got no clue he's standing on history's edge. Another tablet in your mind's eye records a temple's wealth. 100 measures of grain stored for Inanna. It's like those sacred receipts you saw, linking gods to gold to global trade. The scene's calming, the river's flow and the night's quiet hum blending into a soothing rhythm. You linger on the bench, the tablet still in your lap, its clay cool against your skin. The fisherman's silhouette fades into the dark, and you picture Uruk's receipts evolving, clay to papyrus, parchment to pixels. It's a long journey, but it started here, with wedges and trust. You're sinking deeper, the weight of ancient ideas and the river's gentle pulse easing you closer to sleep. Uruk's legacy is alive, its tablets whispering through time, and you're drifting. The hum of history pulling you into a drowsy haze. You're still by the riverbank, the moonlight soft on Uruk's waters, the tablet in your lap growing heavier as the night deepens. The air is cool, laced with the scent of wet reeds and distant campfires, and the city's pulse feels slower now, like a heartbeat winding down. You're reflecting on the receipts that built this world, clay tablets that tracked trades, debts and dreams, and how they're fading into history's quiet embrace. This is the end of your journey, where the story of Uruk's receipts settles into a gentle close, their impact lingering like stars in the dawn. The river's soft murmur and the faint coo of a dove wrap around you, soothing you like a warm blanket, guiding you toward sleep. You're sitting on that stone bench, the tablet's cuneiform glinting faintly under the stars. It's a receipt for a simple trade, barley for wool, but it feels like more, a final note in Uruk's symphony of clay. You're thinking back to the market's bustle, the temple's sacred ledgers, Amma's household debts, and Enki's shady deals. Each tablet was a thread, weaving trust across a chaotic world, and now you're letting them go, letting Uruk's story drift into the night. You can almost feel the clay's cool weight dissolve in your hands, its edges softening, and you smile. Bet you'll dream of scribes and seals tonight, not your inbox. Let's linger here, in this quiet moment. The river's surface ripples, catching moonlight like scattered coins, and a breeze stirs the reeds, their rustle blending with the dove's soft call. You're picturing Uruk's tablets, thousands of them, stacked in archives, buried in ruins or displayed in museums. They're not just relics, they're proof of a world that worked because people trusted clay to hold their promises. You see the market's torchlit stalls, the palace's lion seals, the scribal school's trembling boys, all fading into a gentle blur like a painting left in the rain. Here's a mainstream fact. Mesopotamian receipts peaking around 2500 BC were a foundation of urban economies, enabling cities like Uruk to thrive through structured trade and taxation. Their legacy endured, shaping record-keeping in later empires, Babylon, Persia, Rome, and beyond, into the digital ledgers of today. These tablets weren't just tools, they were a revolution, proving that order could tame chaos, one wedge at a time. Now, for a quirky tidbit. Some tablets were deliberately broken after a debt was paid, like tearing up an IOU with extra drama. Imagine a merchant smashing a tablet with a grin, dust flying, as his debtor sighs in relief. You chuckle, picturing Amma cracking a tablet after her neighbor finally paid those dates, maybe tossing in a fig for good measure. It's a final flourish, a reminder that these receipts weren't just records, they were moments, alive with human joy and relief. You're letting the tablet slip from your mind now, its cuneiform fading like stars at dawn. Historians still argue whether receipts were Uruk's greatest invention or just a practical fix. Did they change the world or just keep it running? Sitting here, it feels like both. They tied merchants to temples, families to kings, Uruk to the future, and you nod, thinking of that standardized system in the plaza, a callback to the city's unified pulse. Another tablet comes to mind, one you saw in the temple, 5 sheep for Inanna, sealed by moonlight. It's a whisper of devotion, tying back to the gods who watched over every deal. Let's lean into the calm. The river's flow is steady, its ripples catching the last of the moonlight, and you hear a fisherman's soft hum, faint across the water. A tablet's memory lingers, a loan with a 20% interest rate, like those you saw in the market, now just a story told in clay. You picture Uruk's scribes, their styluses still, their tablets resting in the earth. The kid skipping stones earlier is gone, but you imagine him dreaming of adventures, not receipts. You stifle a laugh. Bet he'd rather chase herons than carve cuneiform. The scene softening, the riverbank's edges blurring like a dream. You're reflecting on how these tablets, so small and heavy, carried Uruk's weight, its trades, its fights, its faith. They're fading now, their wedges dissolving into the night, but their echo lives in every balance sheet, every bank app, every promise kept. You're sinking deeper, the river's murmur and the reeds whisper blending into a soothing hum, a lullaby older than the city itself. You're letting go now, the river's gentle flow carrying you further from Uruk's walls. The stars are softer, their light a quiet glow, and the air feels lighter, like a sigh after a long day. You're no longer holding that tablet. Your hands are empty, resting easy, as the weight of ancient stories slips away. The reed's rustle is fainter, the doves coo a distant memory, and you're drifting, floating on the river's current, its rhythm slow and steady, like a heartbeat easing into rest. Picture yourself lying on a soft bed of reeds, the river cradling you, its waters cool and calm. Uruk's markets, with their shouting merchants and clinking silver, are gone, replaced by a vast, quiet sky. The temple's ziggurat, the palace's lion seals, Amma's careful tallies, they're all fading, their edges smoothed by time, like pebbles worn by the stream. You're safe here, wrapped in the night's embrace, the world's worries left behind on that stone bench. The river carries you gently, its ripples whispering secrets no one needs to hear. You're thinking of those scribes, their styluses still, their clay tablets buried in the earth, resting as you are now. Their work is done, their promises kept, and you feel a warmth, a quiet pride in their small, mighty deeds. The fisherman's hum is gone, the heron's wings silent, and you're alone with the stars, their light a soft promise that tomorrow will wait. Your breath slows, matching the river's pulse, each inhale soft, each exhale lighter. The night is kind, its darkness a blanket, and you're sinking deeper, the world growing smaller, softer, until it's just you and the quiet. Uruk's receipts, its clay and cuneiform, are distant now, their stories told, their lessons learned. You're ready to let go, to drift fully into the night, where dreams are waiting, gentle and warm. Sleep is close, its edges brushing you like a breeze. The river's flow is all you hear, its rhythm a lullaby, carrying you to a place where no tablets, no debts, no deals remain. You're safe, you're calm, you're free. Let the night take you, let the stars guide you, and let the world fade into a whisper. You're drifting, you're resting, you're gone.